All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. And as always, thank you for taking the time to be with us and to share focus as we examine all things esoteric and look at current events and prophecy and how it all comes together. And thank you again, all those that are in the chat. We appreciate you again joining us, and I'm joined this evening by my good friend Brett Thomas. He is the author of the Mystery Babylon series and has been hard at work bringing forth a lot of new information. Brett, it's been a little while. How are you doing, brother?
Oh, good. How about you, my brother? How's everything with you on your end?
Good. I'm really blessed, and my son and daughter are in Hawaii and joining a group of friends for an upcoming wedding, and so I've had to figure out this whole as far as the live streaming on YouTube. And last night I didn't even know how to add an image, so tonight, thank you for your patience, I was able to actually add an image to the stream so it's not just all a black screen. So I'm an amateur learning, and I'm grateful for my kids and the way that they help and do a lot of the other portions of the work that a lot of people don't see with regard to this ministry and Sacred Word Publishing. And so I'm so grateful and for all of their assistance. But hope they're having a good time. I know, being in Hawaii, I mean, how could you not, being in paradise? And so, but what have you been up to, brother? And how are things going with you? And how's life? I mean, we've got so much to catch up on, the whole thing with what's going on in Israel and how all that is being pushed to what seems to be a larger event. I pray not, but things are heating up.
Yeah. Hey, Michael, can you hear me? Somebody said that they couldn't hear me. I just want to make sure everybody can hear me out there.
I hope so. I hear you.
Okay.
But yeah, if somebody in the chat can really, let us know as to whether you can hear us or not.
Can you hear me better now? Everybody? Anybody?
Oh, you know what? Let me... All right, try it now.
Okay, can anybody hear me now better?
Because I had the audio down on a different thing, and so that may have affected you. But, again, I'm still trying to figure this out.
Okay. Let me try something. Sounds really distant. Very distant.
Red
Okay.
is distant.
Let me try something real quick here, see if I can get it a little better. Better now?
I hope so. Yes. Okay, good.
You must have done something
Much
then, because
better.
everybody's saying it's a lot better.
Okay, great. Well, praise God. Again, I'm just so new at all this, and this was the first time that I've actually been joined by a guest. So this is the second stream I've actually done by myself. So praise God, and I'm again glad that you're coming in loud and clear. Myself also, and so yes, brother, if you would, before we move on, share where people can go to find your work and your updated website and all of kind of what you've been doing, over the past few months since we spoke last.
Yes, the books can be found on your Sacred Word Publishing website. So all the ones I have to date. I have one more volume coming out, hopefully by the end of this year, beginning of next year, and I'm excited about that because I think it's my favorite one. I think it has
Oh,
the
really?
most
Awesome.
information. Yeah, I'm excited. But it's very big. It's a lot of words, so it's taken a while. And I just revamped and re-edited the very first volume I have, The Way of Cain, Part One. So I just put it up. And I think I sent you or Justin something on the rewording and etc. So I'm excited. That's coming, and just by looking over it again one more time, I must have added about 30 pages. I'm surprised because it's. I know you told me Zen about just leaving it alone, but I just wanted to try it one more time, and I think just doing this really made it a lot more readable and understandable and coherent. And I think sometimes books need that.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying at all, in regard to not updating your books, but you just, be careful when they start to push 400 or 500 pages because they're intimidating to people. People are very seemingly frightened of larger manuscripts, and
Right.
bigger books. But
I think you're right. Yeah. No, this one's about 280 pages of material, so it's not bad. But I think what I
oh,
was
okay, yeah,
saying,
that's good size.
that's good.
Yeah.
I think what you were saying, and what I was commenting on, is about trying to make it perfect and going over it again and again.
Oh, yeah, that's not. We have to at some point abandon the book and just let it stand for what it is. But no, I fully understand as far as wanting to update and add and include new information. I think that's important, and especially when you discover something that has confirmed your work and what you have been bringing forth in regard to truth. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, the first one came out about 10 years ago, so I think it needed a little bit of just revamping
Yeah.
and bringing it up to where the research has been since then. So it's I think people will enjoy it, and I'll even send somebody a free one if they want. Just send me send me a response, and first one I get
Oh, why don't you
that
ask a
I
question?
huh?
Why don't you ask a question and then let people, whoever gets the first right answer, and watching, monitoring in the chat, then get their address and send them out. That's what
Oh,
we do.
okay. Yeah, we can do that near the end of the night. That sounds good. It's a good idea.
All right, yeah. Or let's do it in the middle so we don't run out of time. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, so maybe after the second break, we can do that, and you can decide which one you want to give out and decide on a question that you want to, ask the people.
Related to what we talked about, you think?
Yeah, yeah. You can make it anything you want, and but I wouldn't make it too difficult. You want people to be able to respond.
Absolutely.
But yes, brother. So, and in regard to the pages that you've added, and the some of the stuff that you looked at, can you give us a little insight into that and why it was that you decided to bring on the additional information?
The funny part about it is I don't even think there's much new information in there because I think the majority of it was just editing and adding additional sentences to make it more readable. I think I tried to keep the integrity of each volume the same, because the more I worked on it, the more I realized that this first one, The Way of Cain, is more of a introductory uh, volume itself, and it might be easier just to keep it more straightforward and simplified and structured that way, because it seems to flow better. You know what I mean? When you want to
Uh-huh.
get deeper, then you write in the subsequent volumes, you could actually put more deep research into that one. But I think this is a good volume for somebody who wants to just kind of get a feel of what you and I have been talking about all these years, and researching and just kind of seeing the other side of things that people don't, really see that much and read about. So that's why I think it's a good introduction for that.
Right on. Well, I definitely, want to give you a chance to pick up where we had left off. I don't even, you know, but I know that you've got a good grasp of all that. You keep up with all that. But I wanted to give you a chance uh, to list all your books and tell people about them, just the names of them, and that way people can know about the work that you do, and can go and read your books, find them, and check them out.
Sure. The first, it's a mystery, the Rise of Mystery Babylon series. So there's going to be 3 volumes, okay? And as you said, the writing gets rather large, so I did split each one in half. So there are 2 parts to each volume because we just don't want it too big. So
Yeah.
the first one is The Way of Cain, as I was speaking, and that is it has been written about 10 years ago, and it has a lot of the extra biblical sources that are more common, like Enoch and Jubilees, and writers and researchers that are more famous to it. It was more of my preliminary dive into all of this to get information. So it's good for the initial seeker and somebody who wants to just learn a little more about some alternate views and thoughts about early Genesis, and some of these stories, and could they have actually been a little different than what we get portrayed to believe, like a talking snake. I mean, it really.
Right.
So that's the essence of this first volume. The second volume is called The Tower of Babel, and that one is more deeper into the characters that actually are in these stories, such as Cain, Abel, Adam, Eve, the serpent, and takes quite a bit of a look at the dark side and the other side of what we as Christians generally are fed and are generally see around us. We see a lot about Jesus, and we see a lot about how to do things right, but we don't really get a lot of information about the enemy, and know thy enemy. So we have to know what we're confronting in this world, and these volumes give us a lot of information about the other side, frankly.
Right.
The new volume will be coming out right now. I call it Part 3 or whatever, or Volume 3. I haven't really got in too much of the title, etc., and everything ready to go, but it's much. It fills in the gaps of everything else that I didn't talk about in the first 2, and there's a lot. It's not quite the comparisons of the days of Noah to today as the other 2 volumes are. It's more of a chronology from the very beginning all the way up to now.
Wow.
And, it goes all the way into the Dark Ages and etc., and what the forces were working. I don't really get into the certain bloodlines as far as how they talk, the fallen angel bloodlines, etc. But I get into more of Edom himself, and or Esau and the Edomites, and a lot of these deceptions that started back in early Genesis.
Yeah, I'm hoping to, at some point when I have opportunity, to finish the 3rd book of the Great Contest series, and to really do like you, and to bring it forward all the way to now, and to cover the details of the bloodlines and the separation, the who the seed of the serpent is, the synagogue of Satan, and all of that, because I think that's important. But I've got so many projects that I want to do and complete, and I also decided to start work on a book of poetry because it's
Oh,
been a long time since and I love writing prose and free verse and all that. But can you and would you share, some of the go through the chapter headings and so that we can get a better feel for the content of your book? And you said you don't have a clear title yet, but do you have an idea as to when it will be made available?
probably the beginning of next year sometime, and that'll be part one because it's like I said, it's pushing 400 pages again. It's
Yeah.
just how it how it comes. Sometimes it's hard to cut it down when
Yes.
you know
Right.
everything seems relevant.
Yeah, I do that too. My books are, largely 300 plus, and many of them are 400 pages. But I try to, cut off the limit about there. But yeah, I understand. Uh, when you're examining a topic, looking into some portion of truth, and you have the blessing of discernment and some revelation of truth, and you want to definitely share it and cover it and share all the sources that you can find, which are confirming witness to that as well.
Right, right. I was going to ask you real quick before I get into it about the Great Contest. Where did
Yeah.
you leave off at?
I left off with the last chapter of the great contest. The enmity between the seed lines is how the seed of Cain survived the flood of Noah's day.
Okay. Okay. So you got quite a bit to go if you want to keep on
Yeah,
going.
yeah, I'd say quite a bit. Yeah, I'm not even sure I would be able to go through and cover all that in one book, but I'll do what I can. I already have the cover and a lot of the contents written. I just haven't put the focus to finalize it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Definitely.
do you mind sharing the contents when you get a chance? And then after
Sure.
that, I want to ask you a little bit about just what's going on with current events and stuff, and then we'll get into the material.
Okay. Volume three, you're talking.
Yeah.
Volume three is, and just off the top of my head, because I don't have it in front of me, but volume three is more, at least the first part that I've been working on, is more of a look at um, detailed of the dark side, the other side, the pagan side, and I get into paganism and how it actually came about in a lot of different details and a lot of ways that you could just see parallels in Cain, which I do in earlier volumes too, but this one even just it goes a lot deeper. Um, and then I actually get into more of how it begins to corrupt Christianity and godliness as a whole, and how it began to seep in. And I do talk a little bit about what we were talking about the Canaanites and what they have done since the flood and seeping into becoming scribes in Judaism and etc.
Uh-huh.
But the main gist that I get into after this is actually what I talked about at the conference, as far as Rome, because
Yeah.
Rome does seem very pivotal in a lot of these writings in this volume, and it's interesting because it is a very significant city. I've been there, and it is really something to see all that history all over. Everywhere you go, there's an old something. But I get into how the mantle of Mystery Babylon and Babylon itself seem to have passed from the times just after the flood and the Tower of Babel and the fall of the tower and into Rome itself. Because I mentioned in my second volume how Noah, like according to some sources, say that he actually settled in the area of Italy, and he wanted to keep it pure and godly, because a lot of these places were falling right back into paganism after the flood. But he wanted to maintain the Italian peninsula as a wholesome place. But these pagan leaders these great patriarchs just ended up following him there. And because they were, he was the grandfather, and he was a grandfather or a father like Ham, and Cush, from what the research shows, ended up actually fleeing to Noah and just saying, please harbor us in, because we're getting chased out and there's a lot of wars and etc. And I get into all that. I get into how these pagan patriarchs actually kind of went into Rome and were harbored there by Noah, and a lot of this again is in a few texts that aren't really well known. But after he died, then the battles began even more for the soul of Rome, and to keep it godly, and it was going back and forth, and eventually even Edom, the Edomites ended up in Rome under Zepho, and that's in the book of Jasher, I think.
Yes,
And
it is.
they started to work over the people and helped to turn them very militant. And Zepho's main desire was to actually wipe out Israel, because I heard that under Joseph in Egypt, they made the Edomites suffer quite a bit, because I guess they were probably afraid, because the Edomites were always kind of had a knife ready to stab in the back of Israel. They just didn't like them. They were always close, and a lot of times they lived by each other. But when they got together, it was a battle for the birthright. So I get into that quite a bit too, and I get into how Zepho empowered Rome to become this pagan powerhouse of an empire that it eventually was, and why they had disdain for Israel especially. And that's why you saw it, and basically before Jesus was born, and you had the Edomites who were actually ruling by that time. You got Herod and everybody, and it goes from there. So it goes even after Rome tried to crush Israel, after the second destruction of the temple, and they scattered abroad. And then, fancy, they called it Palestine, because I guess one of the meanings of Palestine means there's nobody living here. There's no one there. And so they tried to totally wipe out Israel's existence.
Uh-huh. Well, again, the interesting, and that's the beauty of both your work and my work, and how we've been a confirming witness for one another, is that we do trace down the bloodlines and the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and how, even the battle between David and Goliath. They were, this is like an intimate affair. It's like family, just like with Jacob and Esau and Ishmael and Isaac. They were, cousins. As far as some of the David and Goliath being cousins, and then Jacob and Esau, of course, the twins, and the Ishmael and Isaac from different mothers, but same father. It's interesting how it all plays out, and then it connects to, as you said, with Edom being Rome, and how that played out, with 70 A.D. and the time of Christ, and Herod the Great, and all of that. His being an Edomite as well, and then where we are now, even with the conflict in Israel and Palestine, and the Gaza Strip, and how that was also the connected to Goliath as well, the Philistine giants, and his being the champion of that land, and how they worshipped Dogon, even Samson. All of it is related to the enmity between these two bloodlines, as it was spoken about at the very beginning, and how you and we've come to the discernment that, the fruit, or the apple, what everybody believes to be a fruit, that this was an act, and that the beguilement of Eve was sexual, and her losing her virginity or chastity, that she was sexually corrupted, seduced, and impregnated, with Cain, who was a son of the wicked one, a child of the devil, and a progenitor of even those bloodlines that sit on the thrones of the world today. The synagogue of Satan, those who say they are Jews but are not. I mean,
Uh,
we have been, and my friend Dr. Joy also instrumental in sharing this truth with the world. Not that we were the first, because of course this has been something that many others have spoken about, shared, and covered all throughout the centuries and generations, and yet it's been a lost truth.
right. Yes. Yes. I totally agree. And it's funny because even back in the ancient Egyptian pharaohs and stuff, they used to brag about, oh, we have blood of the Nephilim. They used to like look for
Right,
that, and they consider that godly. You
right.
know, like was it whose skull that look was elongated, and then I think it was what was her name? The queen of Egypt. I'm trying to think of her name. But anyhow, yeah, that's a symbol
You mean
of
Cleopatra?
Cleopatra. There you go. Yeah, a
Yeah, and
symbol of
Tutankhamun and a lot of the
yeah.
pharaohs. But anyways, hold on, brother. We are at break, so let me. We'll be right back in 3 minutes.
You need to get this in your spirit because I don't know what you're walking through, but some of you right now, you are in a tough season. An event has happened and something's happened, and maybe you have failed. But I want to remind you that failure is not final, it's formative. It is not final, it is formative. It is part of the process, it's part of the journey. Your failure matters as much as your success. How do you think you're going to grow if you don't ever fail? Yet some of you have failed and you have decided, well, guess what? I'm a failure. No, failure is an event. It is never a person. Just because you failed doesn't mean that you're a failure. In fact, failure is actually fuel for your future. The way that you grow, the way that you advance, you have to fail in order to succeed. I wish I could get a witness at 12:15 who knew that they'd gone through some failures, and just because you failed doesn't mean it's final. It's formative.
Discover the extraordinary powers of intuitive healing with pain transmutation, a method of holistic healing for the human soul, body, mind, and emotions. If you are looking for answers and a deep understanding of how to help yourself and the people around you to live a happier, healthier life, this is the right place for you. Learn how to read your soul's history in the Akashic Records. Remove negative energy attachments from your astral body and start the process of inner and outer pain transmutation. Join Pain Transmutation Community to get started on the path of intuitive healing. Change your energetic state, manifest new and exciting experiences, re-energize your life, and build inspiring connections with others in our community.
Reveals Satarian history, Darcy, light workers, and indigos. Join me on the Nikki Colombo show. It's time to reclaim our true history, our true timelines, our cosmic heritage. And remember to be humble, for you are made of earth. To be noble, for you Amen.
All right, I do believe that that is the end of the commercial break. And
No hate,
oh,
no hype,
just joking.
no fear. We are your protection from deception.
Okay, I think we're safe now. I never know how the breaks are going to go because
You're
they
doing
keep
pretty
modifying
good.
and adding and changing up the commercials. So, but anyways, let me return it back to you, brother, and give you a chance to finish up what you were saying.
Where were we at? I gotta remember.
We were talking about the importance with regard to the bloodlines and
Oh,
understanding the truth of what happened in the garden.
right, right. That does set the stage for so much that we actually are missing, because we see a lot of surfacey stuff and we see a lot of program stuff that we receive, but when it comes down to this type of research, this is what they don't tell you, and this is what I thoroughly enjoy to understand, because once you see some of these things and read some of these things, it fills in the gaps, and you're like, oh, okay, I can see why this, I can see why that. That's why I enjoy doing what I'm doing. Just like understanding, how they look to these giants throughout history as gods in a way, and you get a lot of different names for them over the years, Kurgan, and even the Aryans, I believe in actually in the book is they were thought of as giants. They had blonde hair, some of them blonde hair, blue-eyed, and again they were just thought to be something divine. But the problem was with a lot of them is they just became too wild to live next to. These people would utilize a lot of their information, and they would trade and barter whatever. Like the women used to barter their bodies for them way back before the flood. But these giants would become so unruly and so, the cannibals, etc. They'd be so mean to their neighbors. That's why they were being thrown out of the areas that they were in, and by not just godly people, not just Israelites. I mean, even pagans and other people in the areas were always constantly tossing them out or trying to get rid of them, right?
Right. I had one of my friends ask me earlier because we were watching a show on Man Madal, which is an ancient basalt construction, megalithic stones averaging between 5 and 10 tons, and they had done this LiDAR examination of the area, and they found out that much of the city was under the water, and had been covered by the deluge. And on this show, the people kept asking, well, how did these ancient people, succeed in constructing this city, which we can't even replicate today? And they kept talking about and trying to explain it and rationalize it as if it was human beings that had created all of these ancient structures,
Yeah.
and that's one of the important aspects of reading and studying the scriptures, because it clearly tells us and shows to us that the fall, not only did the fallen angels interdict into the affairs of humanity and mate with the daughters of Cain, but the result of this unholy matrimony was that a race of giants had come forth, and that these giants had the capability, the strength, and the capacity to build and to lift up these stones which we cannot. And a lot of the indigenous oral traditions, native peoples worldwide, they speak about. Even, Baalbek in Lebanon, it was
Oh
said to
yeah.
have been created by a race of giants. And so, for all the people that, for whatever reason, hate Christianity, hate the Word of God, hate the truth of, what is contained in the scriptures and that has been relayed by the prophets. I mean, this is one of the things that helps you to understand and to make sense of what we see in the world. And that, as I've brought out many times before, in the second book of Baruch, it specifies that 409,000 giants were decimated, wiped out by the flood of Noah's day, and that judgment was not against humanity for going the way of Cain, even though that was a part and portion of it, but it was more that, the fallen angels involved themselves, left their first estate, went after strange flesh, and that the giants were born and they became cannibals. And they were the arch nemesis, the enemies of humanity, and that they would have wiped out Noah and all of his children and family if the Most High didn't reset. And this has been done many times before, and we're told that because of their cannibalism, because of their lust for the blood, and because they offered up in sacrifice, children and even and humans, as the lost book of King Og also talks about, that this was the reason for their decimation, that the angels pinned them one against another and brought them to their destruction, and that the flood wiped out the rest of them. But, these judgments of the Most High against the fallen angels and the giants, it's important to understand because it helps us to make sense of what we see and how, all these ancient megalithic sites and cyclopean structures, that many of them are at the bottoms of the oceans, that even Atlantis was said to be destroyed in a single night and a single day, and disappeared in hours. And so, the truth is in God's word, and that's why, I study it and look at it and research it and examine it, and it also helps us to understand mythology and conspiracy and, all the truth that is underlying everything within the world, in my opinion. Comment?
Yeah, it's fascinating. I watch Ancient Aliens quite a bit, and
Yeah.
just to get, because there's of course everything is aliens in
Right,
that,
right.
every result. But,
Flesh and blood
they,
extraterrestrials.
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, extraterrestrials. You're
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
No, we're aliens. But no, it is fascinating in so many topics they bring up. The giants actually come into play
Right.
so often, and it's so fascinating when you say, "Oh yeah, the natives said that giants actually built
Right.
this, and built that," and it's always the twist, but it's always fascinating when they continue to contribute to biblical history here, and they keep saying giants this, giants that, and,
Right, right.
it just fascinates me to find out, okay, well, if you were looking a little more into the biblical side of things and maybe the angelic side of things, as you always seem to twist the opposite way, but that's okay.
Right.
But if you were open to that suggestion, then things really might make a lot of sense.
A lot more, absolutely.
Oh, I believe it.
Without a
Yeah.
doubt, yeah.
Like, look at Baalbek, they have those stones that, there's nothing even today could actually ever move those foundation stones.
Right.
It's like, okay,
Right.
where did those come from, and how were they engineered? I mean, it's just, unless, people didn't just get very smart and then for some reason got dumb again, and where did
Yeah.
they get all this divine knowledge?
Right. Yeah, exactly. And, the book of Enoch also And we'll get into your material right after this, but I think these are important points to talk about and discuss, and how our work confirms each other. But again, the Book of Enoch tells us clearly as to the rebellion and the fall of the Watchers, and how God brought judgment against them and the giants, and that because they were not supposed to take wives of all which they chose, and they decided to do it anyways. They made this pact with one another to go ahead and to commit this great sin. It was for that reason that they were judged severely. And it tells us of all the secrets of the heavens, the heavenly mysteries that were brought down and shared with the children of Cain, how they were the first artificers, and they created music and even beer. Their women painted their eyelids and used makeup, and were knowledgeable in abortion and herbs, and even alcoholic beverages. They created the first brothels and weights and measures and
Carnivals.
yeah, carnivals and partying and all of that, taverns, way stations, all of that. So they were the ones that brought abomination into the world, and also created the weapons of war, and used that to slaughter, humanity. And so, important points to understand. But let us do. I'll get you to comment, brother, and then let us go ahead and get into your work and the things that you wanted to cover and examine.
Sure. Yeah. To piggyback off your point, it's pretty fascinating, because if you look at the Bible, it does actually give evidence, like, for these giants, and if you really look out for them, and you see, of course, in the book of Jude, we hear these angels that kept not their first estate.
Right.
And that always fascinated me. That thinking, okay, what does that mean? What does that mean? It's so blatantly in your face that what it really means. But if people don't want to hear it, they just don't want to hear it. But and they talk about when the Israelites went into the promised land, and then they basically saw these giants, and they felt like they were grasshoppers compared to them, and they even mentioned the name, the Anakim. So I mean, they were there, they were living there.
Yes.
Where did they come from?
Right. Yeah, and they talked about how the land would eat them, and it was basically talking about the cannibalism that the giants practiced, and how they were involved. And that was one of the reasons why, the Most High did bring judgment against them. And so it's important to understand this, because we see now all over the world ancient city structures, megalithic sites being discovered. And then so much of the archaeology is also showing that many of the people that were involved in these cities and the construction of them, they were involved in children and victim sacrifice. And they demanded blood, like the Mayans and the Aztecs cutting the hearts out of their victims and pulling out their still beating hearts and offering them to Sun, and throwing their bodies down the steps of the pyramids and the temples, and how they would cannibalize them. It reminds me, I don't know if you ever heard the book of Andrew and Matthias going into the city of the man-eaters. Have you ever read that text?
I've heard of the name. I think I haven't gone into it, though.
Well, the text is amazing, because it shows that the apostles, when they drew straws, all of them did not want to go to this place that was a stronghold for Satan. And it speaks about how they would abduct all the people that traveled through their area, steal their goods, imprison them, take their eyes out, and then fatten them like cattle. And then every certain phase of the moon, they would bring out 7 people, slaughter them, drain their blood, and then eat them in a big festival. And all this was done by every person that lived within this city. And so, these things, it shows to us that it was this kind of abomination that existed in ancient times. And this is also the reason why the Most High brought judgment against, the cities Sodom and Gomorrah and 3 others that were destroyed in the plains of Shinar. And so, important to understand that these things really did happen, and they, are the reason. I mean, even Shay mentions the adrenochrome and how these kind of things are continued in this day and age by the elites and practiced by them. And
that's
so,
that.
yeah.
That's that hormone. Is that hormone?
Yeah, that they extract when they instill fear into their victims, and then
The children.
the adrenaline, that rushes into the body, that floods the body. Yeah, and children and others, and I mean anybody that is a victim of what they do. But and I know this is difficult for people to understand and to hear, but it's like they have factories, like a factory assembly line set up to where they're extracting this kind of thing from people. And so it's a
like
it's
a
a
drug.
horrible thing.
He said, I got a quick question. Somebody said, B. Mill said, and I wanted to just throw this at you because it's an intriguing question. He said, if the fallen taught war and weapons, why had they learned it from heaven if there was no war? And if you want to give me your thoughts, I can give you mine after.
Say that again. What was the question? I'm sorry.
If the fallen taught war and weapons, why had they learned it from heaven if there was no war?
It's not that they had learned it, as far as they had the technology to extract metals, and they had that capability. And there was war in heaven. That was the reason why they were cast out. They rebelled against the Most High, and they, as it says in the 2nd book of Enoch, they were cast out and cast down on the 2nd day. And this was after a massive war where they tried to overthrow the Messiah, Christ in heaven, and his dominion, his leadership over the angels. And it was for that reason that they were banished here to the earth, and they have been here for a lot longer than we have. It says on the 2nd day, and that the firmament, I believe, was put into place in order to imprison them and to keep them locked into this time, space, and dimensionality. And I write about that in The Great Contest 1. The first book is about the war in heaven and covers all these things. But yeah, Brett, if you would.
That's very interesting. I like that. I like that input. I think that exactly what you're saying about that there was definitely a war in heaven, because and these fallen angels, some of them even before Adam, right when he was being created, they rebelled. They did not want to serve under him as the manager of the garden. So there was another demotion, and
yes,
I don't know if there was a battle, but there was definitely demotion. Demotion.
I believe they were already cast out at that time, but that was the reason why I believe Satan went after Adam and Eve, was to take vengeance, because he couldn't, come against Christ. He had no power, no authority. He had already been kicked out of the heavens, but he wanted to have his revenge and also be able to breed and have, his children here on the earth. And that's what happened with Cain. And Cain was the patriarch of the serpent seed. And we see that that was a continuance, that Christ, as the seed of the woman, would crush the head of the serpent seed, and that was fulfilled on the cross.
And you
So yeah, they
definitely
were
had two.
here.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that they were here long before we were. And that's why we see all these ancient constructions all over the world. They were done by them, not us, not humanity. Humanity has only been here for the last 6,000 years as far as modern humanity. Yes, there were pre-Adamites, and yes, there was hominids on the earth, and there were also giants and dwarves and trolls and all that kind of thing going on. It was much like Lord of the Rings in ancient times. But as far as Adam and Eve and our modern ancestors, this was, the second world age, the last 6,000 years, 7,000 years, including the Sabbath. But yeah, go ahead, brother.
There's another question. Do you think the Garden of Eden could be located atop of the Rupes Nigra?
Yes, the Rupes Nigra is the black rock, or the lodestone magnetic mountain, which is found at the North Pole. What Satan or Lucifer in Isaiah 14 referred to as the Mount of the Congregation, and in the sides of the north, and that this is where the throne of the Most High is situated. And yes, God is sitting on the top of the vaulted dome of the earth. The heavenly temple is located there. This is currently where New Jerusalem resides, and that is the home of the elect, the righteous. And it will be at the end of days, when there's a new heaven and a new earth, that New Jerusalem descends down here to the earth, and those that are counted, numbered with the elect, will be allowed to enter therein and be with the Most High, the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, for what will be the Sabbath rest, the millennial reign.
Are you talking a future Garden of Eden? Is that what you're talking about?
It will be a future Garden of Eden here, but it is currently residing, it is where paradise is, above the vaulted dome of the earth. This is where the third heaven, where, Paul and Enoch described seeing New Jerusalem, the paradise of God. It is situated right now above the vaulted dome. And it tells us in Revelation that John saw at a later date, when there's a new heaven and a new earth, that New Jerusalem will descend out of the heavens, that the firmament will roll back as a scroll, and that New Jerusalem will come out of the heavens and be brought here to the earth, and that God will tabernacle with us here on the earth.
One quick more question while we
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I'm curious. Now, you don't believe that one of the firmaments collapsed when the flood came?
No.
Huh?
There's only one firmament, and it is an impenetrable barrier. But the windows of heaven were open, and the flood waters, the waters above, were allowed to come in and to flood. And in the book of Enoch, it speaks about how it covered over what was the lofty roof of the world, and it filled up like the earth was a snow globe, and it filled up. Even the foundations of the deep were also open, so that the waters covered over all of the mountains of the world.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that too next after the break, I'm sure.
Yeah, we've got just a minute or so remaining. So, and also, brother, while we're at break, why don't you think about a question that you want to ask, and the book that you want to give away, and people can get ready for that. That we'll cover that after the break, but.
Sounds good. I got a question.
Yeah, sure. We got a minute and a half, so go ahead.
Okay. And the book will be probably this revised one that I did, this volume 1 of The Way of Cain, or part 1. Okay, question is, people, actually, I think we spoke about it our last session, and it'll be simple to some, but some might take a little bit. Who's the brother of Og?
Right on. Do you want the 3 that are listed? I mean not Og. I mean I'm talking about Goliath. Sorry, but yeah, that's a great question. So those of you that hear who is the brother of Og, and this is mentioned, also when Joshua went to war. So
yes, it's in the Bible.
Yes, and so the first person that answers it, Brett will reach out to you. You can email him. Do you want to give out your email so they can contact you with the address?
It's Mystery Babylon, the same as my website, MYS Mystery Babylon at 1791.com.
All right, great. And they are just a few minutes behind us, so just keep an eye out in the chat for the answer, and we'll be right back after about 3 minutes.
There we go. Thanks, Adrian.
All right, we'll be right back, everyone.
This is iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio. iHeartRadio makes you want to move. When you have a great melody, a song,
instantly connected.
I love it when the beat goes.
Did you know you can listen to Truth Frequency Radio on iHeartRadio? Just download the app to your smartphone, or smart TV, and get the best of TFR wherever you are.
Radio.
See you there.
So you love talk radio, then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Do you think that General Patton was woke? I don't think so. What do you think, Mike? Mike, was he woke? I don't think so. I don't think he was too woke. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit. This is a sick culture, and our country is a disaster, and it's going to die before your very eyes. Women's soccer team was supposed to easily win, but they went woke. The one with purple hair, she didn't play too well. She went woke. Take a look. Everything goes bad, but it's true about woke. Do you think that General Patton was woke? It's crazy. It's crazy. I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit. Our country was so respected. Nobody was going to mess with us. And then this clown, he got in office, so like the captain of a ship. Let's jump off first before the passengers. I'm getting the hell out of here. I could just see this, the leadership of the Taliban standing there. Somebody walking up, sir, the soldiers have left. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit. You know what? I believe totally in your freedoms. I do. Free, you got to do what you have to do. But I recommend take the vaccines. I did it. It's good. Take the vaccines. But you got, no, that's okay. That's all right. You got your freedom. But I happen to take the vaccine. It's crazy. It's crazy. I've never seen anything so stupid in my life. Woke. You know what woke means? It means you're a loser. Woke. Everything woke turns to shit.
This is the Truth Frequency Radio Network. TFR.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you again for joining us. And yes, I believe the answer has been cited in the chat. I'm not sure as to who was the first person. Brett, did you get that? Because I was a little bit away.
I think I got it. I think this name is, or this handle is, where is he? Truth Seeker in His Service.
Okay.
Successfully said Sihon.
Yes, Sihon.
Very, very good.
And interesting. Oh, yeah. Okay, I see it now. Yep. And interesting that, it's not mentioned in the Bible as to how Sihon had survived the flood, but that having done so, he was one of the enemies that, took up arms against Israel. And that Og actually did not join in the first battle because he thought, that Sihon would have no problem wiping out the Israelites himself. And I think it's the book of Joshua or somewhere that speaks about how he was napping and did not even, even though they warned him and told him, he didn't think it was going to be necessary for him to go out to battle. What was that, Brett?
Huh?
What comment did you just make?
Oh, I said, yeah, he thought it was no problem.
Yeah, it was going to be no problem, that they were going to decimate the Israelites. And in the book of Joshua, it speaks about, how afterwards Og had lifted up an entire mountain, and how with that single mountain he was going to be able to crush all the Israelites. That's how, big and strong he was. And yet they were guaranteed to, when they went to war with him, as Joshua and Caleb were, they were confident. And the Most High went to war with them and used even, stones from the heavens to destroy many of the giants and to wipe them out and to battle against them. And Og was preserved, and that they were kept for, and the remnant of them to show how mighty and formidable the giants were prior to the flood. But, the Most High is absolutely, without a doubt, greater and more as far as almighty and omnipotent, and wipe them out and destroy them. And that's how the name of Yahuwah was also established after the Exodus. It was because they were able to wipe out these giants who were at that time, fearsome, and nobody wanted to go against them. Go ahead, Brett.
Yeah. They weren't going to leave that land, not voluntarily.
No, not at all.
There's no way. And they weren't even supposed to be there, from what I understand. And I don't think anybody was supposed to be in that land because Noah, from what I researched, Noah dictated that land to the sons of Shem.
Exactly. Yes, and so, the Canaanites usurped it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we want to go. I mean, again, but that was and Canaan moved in there. Canaan moved in there,
exactly,
and the giants moved in, and they just Canaan didn't want to go where he was supposed to go,
right?
Which was, I think, the west coast of northern Africa. Is that right?
Yes. Right.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just gonna say, one of the books that I think that both of us are alluding to with regard to what happened after the flood. The travels of Noah into Europe, which is a fascinating text. I think that's one of the things you're alluding to. But it was written by Berosus, who
Right.
was a Chaldean historian, and much of his work has been destroyed and disappeared. And so it's amazing that we have that manuscript, and we published it at Sacred Word Publishing, put it into print format, and it is an incredible read. Brett?
It is. Actually, I did a lot in the third volume. I actually used a lot of that because there was a time period of after the fall of the Tower of Babel, and when we get into Edom and Zepho and his domination of Rome, there's a lot of warfare going on between the powers of light and the powers of darkness, pretty much, And there's not many sources that get into that, but there are a few, But it's another missing link that I think that book does a lot to help resolve.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. Which again is why I think that people should read and study some of this other ancient material. And this book by Berosus that was passed down and retranslated, and how it covers how all the nations were established after the flood, and it was without a doubt the three sons of Noah, but that Ham being from Nama and having seen the nakedness of his father, that Canaan being the result of that, he was the one that, as you said, usurped the land of what was ancient Israel, which is called Canaan after that usurpation, but that he took it from Shem. And that's why the Most High made a covenant with Abraham and Joshua, and Moshe being brought up as a leader to lead them, and then Joshua taking the mantle. He decimated the giants and retook that land. But that was their inheritance, and that was a land given to them way before, to Shem, promised to Shem.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, you put that in some of those things into today's talk and today's confrontations, and you think, oh, okay, well, okay, there's another missing element.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of people don't know about that and haven't, researched or examined it. And yes, that is part even of the war that is going on right now, that I covered in last night's show, where I talked about Zechariah 12 and the prophecy of Jerusalem being a cup of trembling amongst the nations. That we are, in that time, the fig tree generation, seeing and witnessing, and that the enmity between these two bloodlines is still playing out with the war between the Palestinians and the Zionists in Israel. So it is all going down and still a continuation. And Christ said, let both grow together until the time of the end. And that at the end, he would separate the wheat and the tares, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. So,
yeah. My message to Truth Seeker, the winner, great job. And please send me an email. I want to get the new revised and updated book to you. Okay, so it'll probably give me a couple weeks, but please give me your email and or address and your regular address. Then I could send it out to you. But I want to make sure that I get some shipments in. So I'm gonna give you the best one and the newest one. So okay.
Awesome, brother. Yeah, we're definitely gonna have to barter. I'll send you some of my Holy Spirit books, and you'll have to send me your new edition as well.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, of course. I love your work, and you are an author after my own heart, in that you use a lot of the ancient sources and share them in your manuscripts, and bring forth a lot of information that some I've never even heard about and read myself. So I love to learn something new, and I do learn things from you when you cite all of that stuff. So awesome reads. But
Well,
yeah,
I mean-
let's I want to turn it over to you, brother, and you can guide and lead the show and bring us into whatever you want to cover from your works and where we left off, and let's get into it.
Okay. All right. Where we left off actually was the Way of Cain and part 2, and probably about 150 pages in. And the topic that we were talking about is the number of sons of Adam or Adamites that went aboard the ark. And obviously everybody that knows the Bible probably understand that there were 8. And Zen and I might differ a little bit on a few things, but I believe that it wasn't exactly the 8 that everybody thinks. I mean, sure, it says in the Bible that Noah and his sons and their wives and Noah's wife went aboard the arks, and there's 8 right there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they were all Adamites or they were from Adam or of this bloodline. And when we get into the word Adamite and from Adam, the reason Zen and I probably talk about it in that way is because they are the ones that are part of that prophecy. Okay, they need to bring on the Savior eventually in this purified blood form and multiply in that way. They can't be tainted. They have to. They're the Adam side of the enmity that would exist. And that prophecy I think we're talking about is Genesis 3:15. At the very end of the whole Garden of Eden, when God was dishing out his curses to everyone, this is that prophecy, and it needs to be fulfilled, and it was. So
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. And so 8 did go aboard the ark, and I'm a little bit, like I said, mine is, and I think Zen agrees with me that those 8 probably weren't pure-blooded as well. Some of them, like Nama, Noah's wife, was Canaanite blood, right?
Yes, she was the sister of Tubal-Cain and the daughter of Lamech, the 7th generation, and Noah was instructed to take her as wife, and we are specifically told that this was so that the seed of Cain and the seed of the serpent would survive the flood and find continuance, because again we are in told Christ that let both grow together until the time of the end, and so they would have to survive in order for us to continue the war between the bloodlines till the end of the age, and that's what we are seeing.
I'm going to go off topic just very quickly
Sure.
here a little bit, because you sparked something that I wanted to mention to you. Do you ever hear of this book called The Parthenon Code?
No, have not.
Anybody out there, and Zen, of course, it's called The Parthenon Code. I think the author is Robert Johnson or Robert Bowie Johnson. It's on Amazon, I think. But I bought that a number of years ago, and I found it fascinating, because what he does, he has a number of books, and what he does is he actually looks at Greek mythology and a lot of the vases and the different descriptive artifacts that are found that have pictures and illustrations and images on them, as well as the Parthenon itself. And he goes there and he diagnoses all of these different vases and different images, and he links them to the characters immediately around the flood, which is fascinating. He links some of them to Cain, and he links some of them to Cush and to Nimrod and to Nama too. And that's what you sparked that thought about Nama, because she became the new goddess and the new Queen of Heaven, whatever, like the reincarnated Eve there, because of her role as Noah's wife going through the flood. And that's fascinating.
Wow.
It is. You should really look at that book, then, because
I will. Yeah, I was just going to say, because we don't find a lot of sources which confirm this information as with regard to Nama being, which means pleasant, beautiful, her being the wife of Noah, and that Ham was her son, and that, when he saw the nakedness of his father, he had sexual relations with her and brought forth Canaan, who, because she was serpent seed, and Ham was also predominantly, 3/4 serpent seed, that Canaan would also be predominantly, and would be the one to continue the serpent seed after the flood.
Yeah, I do search, like you, I'm sure, Zen. I do search for any kind of obscure whatever, maybe even more
Yes.
modern sources like this that give affirmation, or it does some kind of research that gives something interesting like that. Like even Chinese letters. I don't know if I have a few books on these Chinese letters. Do you ever
Absolutely.
hear about that too?
Yeah, because they tell the story of Noah surviving the flood. That even the like the pictographic the symbol is based upon that narrative, and so that's very interesting to me.
Yes. Yeah. So anyhow, the Greeks, which the theme of this book I think is all about, which is just fascinating. The Greeks actually took a total opposite view of what godly people and Christians and etc. would be thinking, is that the Canaanites were the victors actually in this, because according to their illustrations and their vases and everything and their sculptures, they would say that they believed that the Canaanites and the sons of Cain were the royal ones and the ones that were victimized, and they actually did get crushed, but they did make it through the flood, and now they became victorious and came back. And then with the rise of paganism and
Wow.
corruption, it's very fascinating. I really, you would really love that book, especially with all the illustrations, and it does help to shed light on what they thought of their famous patriarchs, their famous pagan patriarchs, especially Nimrod. Nimrod was called the Earthborn one because they figured that, again, they were crushed down to the earth by that god, by the Saturn god that they don't even want to mention. They don't like that. They talk subtly about God, but they don't even want to mention who he is and that he even exists. But they do say, they do give a mention of the prophecy of Genesis 3:15 that the sons of Cain will have their heads crushed, and that they talk about this in their illustrations. But again, they give Nimrod the credit for coming back, being earthborn, bringing it all back out of the earth. And that's another symbol that I've mentioned when I was at your conference talking about Cush as being the god, and the one in end times prophecy is a parallel. I'm getting off the topic here, but
This is important. Thank you for doing so.
Huh?
I said this is important, and thank you for doing so. That I definitely want to get this, and we'll check it out. And you said it's called the Parthenon Code. Is that?
Parthenon Code, yeah, as in the Parthenon in Greece.
Yes.
And I think his last name is Bowie Johnson.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna add that to our recommended list and check it out.
I put it in the chat
for myself.
Robert, yeah. So what we're talking about again, that the Greeks seem to get, and the Greeks weren't not Christian by any means. They were
not at all.
They were basically pagan in a lot of ways, and
right.
But again, their royal people were these patriarchs of the pre and post flood era, like immediately around the Bible, and what they mentioned about it. And Nama was the great mother.
Wow, that is amazing. Yeah. That is amazing.
Yeah. So, anyhow, but again, that kind of gives credence to what you and I are both talking about, that when these 8 went aboard, that they weren't exactly all of pure blood, obviously, because she was one of them.
Right. And that the serpent seed survived the flood, because a lot of people said, oh, why would God spare, the serpent seed? But I do want to share one passage about Og and how, he being one of the giants that had been spared. And the reason, and this is from the Targum, and it confirms the things that we're talking about as well. It says, and Og came who had been spared from the giants that died in the deluge and had ridden protected upon the top of the ark, and sustained with food by Noah not being spared through high righteousness, but that the inhabitants of the world might see the power of the Lord and say, were there not giants who in the first times rebelled against the Lord of the world and perished from the earth? And so, again, it's talking about and confirming as to how Og survived, and also that the giants were spared, Og and Sihon, in order that the world would know that there were giants in the ancient times, and that they were, these pre-flood giants were of greater stature and mightier than those that came after the flood.
Yeah. Yeah, that is kind of fascinating. Somebody just said something about Athena, and Athena is one of the goddesses that Nama linked to, which is interesting too. And Athena, they said in this book, and I've heard it in other sources, means it comes down to the deathless one. That was one of the meanings of it. And if you think about the deathless ones, that would make sense,
right,
that Nama would be considered, and Noah, is because they lived so long. They
right,
were able,
right.
The people before the flood were able to live so much longer. So, everybody else was dying off. Like from what the research says, that even Cush, which was Noah's grandson, who fled back to him. Remember we talked about that earlier?
Yes.
He was about 300 and some odd years old, and he ended up dying just a little bit before Noah did.
Yes.
He's his grandson.
Yes.
So that's why a lot of these top gods, like that they made out of Noah and Nama, basically they were called, the old man. That was another, or the eternal living ones, etc. Because they had this ability to live so much longer.
Yeah, and the first 10 generations did. And we see that after the flood, the Most High reduced the lifespans and the stature of not only humans, but also the giants. In the book of Enoch, it says that the giants would no longer live almost seemingly immortal lifespans, but that they would be reduced to 500 years. And that humanity would be brought to 120, which by the time of Moshe, that he lived 120 years, but that Shem lived 600, and then Abraham 175. So,
yeah, of course, again, because Shem was born before the flood, so they kept that longevity.
Yeah. And Noah lived 930 years. And book, that book we mentioned, The Travels of Noah into Europe, it also speaks about how, because they lived such long lifespans, they were immortalized and idolized.
That's why they were turned into gods a lot of times, because they outlived everybody and they thought they would live forever.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, in that book that you just mentioned, Noah actually did 2 tours, and he did actually toured around all of these establishments. When he pointed out to all these people where to go, he actually went to tour and see how they were doing, and trying to maybe cheer them up and keep them on the right path of the right pathways and the godly pathways. So that's interesting, because that's what that means. The Travels of Noah. He actually toured around, and he ended up in Italy the second time, and that's where this whole Rome fiasco started. Is basically he loved the country, it was beautiful, and he wanted to retire there.
Yes, and he did not want his children to go at war with one another. No. He did not want Ham to rebel, but as that book reveals, Ham got involved into some very dark occultic magic, and he then went to war against his brothers, and as we saw, the Canaanites usurped the land from Shem, as far as ancient Israel, and so there was the beginning of that war. And then Nimrod, of course, asserted his dominance over all of them, and having the garments of power, that he was able to do so. One
of the things that I come together, and it's a theory, but I don't have it, but I did a lot of research out of that book. And you know who I think, if you've heard of Osiris and
Yes.
and Set, right? And actually how he was cut up
Right.
into 14 pieces. That's like a big in Egyptian mythology.
Right.
I believe that according to the research that Osiris is actually Mizraim.
Right. Yeah.
One of the sons of Ham.
Yes.
Okay?
Exactly.
And he was actually at least following his conscience and doing some things, because he was actually working with Shem a little bit for a while, because he was actually going to teach people how to live righteously and etc. in where Shem was hanging out, which again would be Jerusalem, because according to some ancient texts, they talk about Jerusalem actually being started by Shem, Salem.
Right.
Salem.
Yes,
So,
Shem was Melchizedek.
Right, Melchizedek. Right, and that's that. If you put those pieces together, things again make more sense too. It's like, okay, he's the one that people look up to so much back then.
Right, exactly. Yes.
But this, what I was saying is this this Osiris, as the Egyptians would call him, was actually killed, and he was killed by his brother. Now, how many brothers did he have? He had let's see here. He had Put, he had Cush, and he had Canaan. And I believe that actually the only one evil enough to do that, would be Canaan. And that's why I believe that actually is one reason why he became so famous and so strong, is because, and he was very strong in Egypt too for a time, Canaan was. So he probably took him out, and that's why he became famous as the evil god Set.
Yeah, hold on, brother. We are at the third break. We'll be right back,
Gotcha.
everyone.
All right.
Sometimes it's easy to be casual just about repetition and not get much better. How about the man who's been talking for 10 years, but he's making the same verbal errors he made 10 years ago? Or 10 years ago, he said, I don't quite know how to put this. 10 years later, he's saying, I don't quite know how to put this. We can give you 10 hours not to know how to put it. You can stretch our patience and take 10 days not to know how to put it, but we can't give you 10 years. 10 years is too long not to make enough progress in better language skills. So, repetition with purpose. The purpose is to grow and to change, to develop, to expand, to make progress. Here's some other parts to saying it well. Sincerity, from the heart, with noble intent, wishing to bring value. That adds immeasurably to your ability to speak well, communicate well. There's no substitute for sincerity. I can forgive you for a mistake in judgment, but I can't forgive you for a mistake in intent.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Travis Cook, America's Evil Genius, here to invite you to join us every Tuesday afternoon here on Truth Frequency Radio. No, on our show, you will not see a bunch of three-piece suits or a cocktail party, and you certainly won't see a bunch of inside the beltway band. But you will see eye-gouging, crotch-kicking, No holds barred political discussion, the likes of which you won't see anywhere else in media. America's Evil Genius. We come to you every Tuesday from the outskirts of war-torn St. Louis, Missouri, where there's always a good race rider sex scandal just around the corner. Join us every Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and noon on the left coast right here on TFRLive.com. America's Evil Genius, Travis Cook, on TruthFrequencyRadio.com.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
TFR.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became among great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Framed by the sun, it's off in a mansion that's got to be planets like Mars. From conceive of a face from the surface of Mars to in need of a meaning and purpose. These monsters indeed they believe that they sight beyond God, so that maybe with time we'll do right. And if on and eventually reach what they seek, and that's solve the problems of man, but they really don't know that they don't. The works of our hands are but just filthy bricks. We travel the lands and think about my lamps set within a bunch of the facts. Imagine they got me many activists.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. And I do want to give a shout out to all the new people that are just now discovering our channel here and that have joined our ministry. We appreciate all of you. It's always a great honor and a pleasure to be here in fellowship with all of you and to share time. But I did find that book, Brett, and I will be ordering it, and I am looking forward to reading it already. What you have said about it has fascinated me, and I'll be, excited to check it out. But let me turn it back over to you, brother. We got one final segment. The show's, going by so quickly as it always does when we get together. And
great. Yes, thank you. Yeah, just Zen, take a look at there's some other books that he wrote too. And there's one, I can't think of the name, and I don't have it right in front of me, but just take a look at all the books that he wrote, because there is even some more that actually go right to the point here about Nama and these different biblical patriarchs. So it's cool. The Parthenon Code talks a lot about the Parthenon itself, but again, the other ones that he wrote actually get more into the biblical characters, if that's what you're interested in. So.
Oh yeah, most certainly. Yeah, I'm checking it out now, and it's fascinating, again, that we have a confirming witness for Nama being the second wife of Noah, and that Noah was instructed to take her as wife in order to give the serpent seed continuance. So, but anyways, back over to you, brother.
Right. Okay. Just a very quick little thoughts that we talked about earlier before I get into it. I just want to say that I think that God is a merciful God, and I think he did bring even more. Yeah, he did bring some of these seeds of the serpent, etc., aboard, because again, some of them, maybe tried to do well and to do right by God and etc. So I don't think God just looks at somebody because of your bloodline and then hates you, etc. I think it's all kind of what you make out of it. So that's why I think he was merciful and allowed even the giants to go aboard. Certain ones, because I'm sure you know this, but there was a number of giants that actually went to Enoch, and they were asking him, and they were afraid because they knew something was up before the flood. So some of these giants do have a conscience, and I don't think God would actually just say, well, it's your fault because you were born because of this fornication, so I'm not going to allow you a chance. So I think that helps us to understand why these were brought aboard the ark and why they came about after, because God is merciful. But I mean, again, a number of them went south, but that's just par for the course. I mean, they God at least allowed them the opportunity, and he wasn't, biased against anybody in these positions.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I've even read stories of, certain giants as being and befriending humanity. And so I think, it's an individual case and that we can't just lump them all together, even though, yes, historically we do see and find that, the giants were an enemy to humanity, even during the time when the Paiute nations, they speak about how the red-headed, green-eyed giants were their enemies and how they would cannibalize, kidnap their people and cannibalize them and
Right.
and those kind of things. But
Okay,
again,
right.
yeah, we can't just generalize everything and everybody. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that helps affirm things with me too, because you hear a lot of people talk about Christians and oh, they're this and they're mean and they're this and they're that, but you get the whole story and you see that that's not actually the case. I mean, a lot of things are hidden from us, like the lost 10 tribes, etc. All of these things are hidden, but once you do a little research and you start to find out these extra tidbits of information, then things make a lot more sense and you get a lot more secure in what you believe in.
right. Oh yeah, since you made mention of that, I wanted to talk about also the lost tribes and how the Native American people are part of those lost tribes, and that we see that the Jesuits, they were a large part of those that were behind the conquistadors, and how they took and used the Bible as their weapon against the savages, and that they had to convert them, force them into Christianity, which is not, we're supposed to love even our enemies. And yet, again, it shows you how we have the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent, and how this played out. And even here, like I read a book called He Walked the Americas, which is an ancient account from the Native people. Their traditions that speak about how Christ had come and visited and walked among the Americas and had gone from tribe to tribe and had encouraged them to accept the way, which was basically, the Ten Commandments, and to love even your enemies. And how the Native American people, that there were two different ways, that there was those that worshiped the serpent and that performed and were involved in, the destruction of their neighbors, and that they worshiped the serpent, and that they practiced blood sacrifice and those kind of things. And so we see this distinction, this division happening in every part of the world. And if you don't understand how the bloodlines, expanded and were connected to these kind of things, it just, you can't make sense of it.
Right.
But when you do understand this, it helps to explain a lot of history. Even the Druids and how they were involved in blood sacrifice, and why there were, human bodies and sacrificed people found around Stonehenge, and in the Mayan pyramids and things of that nature. Even though these people had highly advanced skill and technology, a lot of them being and worshiping the fallen angels, as you were saying, with this Parthenon code, and how it covers the other side of it, how the children of Canaan and Cain, Ham, they worship their fathers. And the elites, even in this day and age, they believe they are part of, and even the Nazis, they talk about the superhuman and how they were connected to the fallen angels and to the giants. And
absolutely, the Aryans.
Yeah, the Aryans,
were the
exactly.
giants.
Exactly. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, the Aryans were the giants, and that's what
Exactly.
that's what they were looking for. And a lot of these
Right.
giants were either known to have blonde hair or red hair,
Yes.
and of course the blue eyes, and that's where you
Right.
get a lot of this. So these Nazis were pagans. I mean, obviously they're looking for their gods who they think that are of a divine source, and
Right.
that again goes back to the Bible and to the giants.
Right.
It's fascinating again,
Yes.
but we get all of this extra bit of information taken out from what we learned, we understand. That's why so many people are all in a daze, kind of, because they don't really feel safe and understanding of and confident about what they read, is because these elements are missing.
Yes, and again, the other thing with the Nazis and how they destroyed and targeted, as far as the Jews and dissidents, and this kind of thing is again connected to the enmity between the bloodlines, and people that don't know this, don't understand it. They were involved, the Thule Society. They were part of the secret societies and those organizations. Even here in America, we had Billy the Kid. He was part of the Knights of the Golden Circle, and there was all these secret societies going on at that time. And we see that Prince William and the royal family, they are all part of other secret societies and connected to those kind of things in this day and age, and all that continues. There's this ancient Babylonian Atlantean worship going on in this day and age, and the blood sacrifice, the child sacrifice, the pedophilia, all that is ongoing, and it's connected to this ancient war. And people that don't understand it, they are never going to make sense of it all, because these things are not taught in Sunday schools and seminaries and by the mainstream majority.
It's in fact the opposite. They're discouraged.
Exactly. Exactly.
And what are they afraid? Why not just let all the information come out and let the people make up their own choices? Exactly
right. And those that have brought forth these truths and that have spoken about these things, we are criticized. They attack the messengers. They try to belittle us, tell people that we're heretics and blasphemers, and that people shouldn't even look at or examine our work, that even if you were to do so, that you are going to be labeled one of those conspiracy theorists, or you are also a blasphemer and heretical, and on and on and on. And all we're doing is revealing truth,
Yeah. I want to ask you, and we may end up getting to my material later, which is fine, because I think we're going on a good route here as far as back and forth. I'm just curious to hear your side of it, and I think it's relevant, and I wanted to hear my side of it in this relevant topic. What's your thought, and I'll give you mine too, but what's your thought about why bloodletting, why spilling blood, and if you can tell me your thought on, I want to get deep here, the deeper side of it. What's the big deal about eating people and cannibalism? What's the deeper significance in your mind, in your thoughts?
Well, I think it's in part it's how they say that if you eat a person, you consume their spirit, and that gives you the ability to take power over them. Because we know, the scriptures tell us that the life is in the blood. And that I also think that, with the adrenochrome and the terrorization of people, and how they instill fear into people right before they, drink their blood, and they bloodlet them, and then, tap them, and then gather the blood for consumption. That it's about power, and it's about magic, and they believe, and I think it gets them literally high, that adrenochrome is a drug. And of course, I don't know anything about it, but from what I understand, it is it does get them high. You know, the adrenaline, it's a drug, and it's, you know, I don't know as far as the high or everything, but people do speculate that it gets you higher than, you know, even some of the other powerful drugs that are out there. You know, I don't know the truth of that, but heroin and all of that, if there is some kind of aspect of that to their doing and supporting and involving themselves in these kind of things. But I do think also that with the Satanism, you know, it's like the whole starfire thing, and how, which I know this is kind of gross, but they will, the occultists and those practitioners, they drink even menstrual blood, and they believe it gives them power. And you know, that's and they call it starfire. And
Really?
yeah, these are, and we know that women are considered to be unclean during that time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so for these occultists to actually consume, you know, that and to believe it gives them power, is there truth to that? I don't know, but they seem to believe it and to practice it. And so, what are your thoughts?
Well, first, I think the blood sacrifice is just a ripoff of blood sacrifice to God, and I think it's they mimic what they do, what normal people should be doing, or at least they did back in the Old Testament when they had blood sacrifice to God, and so they had to make it look similar, and there probably is some kind of supernatural element to that all, to the spilt blood. But of course we know, according to the Bible, that blood is life.
Yes.
And blood is the life. So I think it has to do with, for one thing, it's so interesting what you just said, is the menstrual blood being something that would be considered tainted in a way, or you need to etc. But they're going after it. It's like the opposite.
Right.
They crave everything the opposite. They value it now. It's not something that you should be looking on and say, okay, well, let's wait a little bit or whatever. They considered it valuable. So I think that is showing us that who their real intentions of serving are, and how they're going about it is they actually look for the opposite. And
yeah, they turn everything upside down.
I like, actually, Shay just said something, the demonic forces feed off the fear associated with human sacrifice. And I think
absolutely.
Yes, that was very good. Good, Shay. I believe that too. And I think that's another thing, is people who abide in these particular sacrifices and practices, they are exactly what you were saying, and they were looking for power. Okay.
Right.
And when these demons, I believe, this is just like a personal opinion, but being in hell and being down there in the darkness waiting for final judgment, I think anything that could give them a little bit, I'm talking about them down the demons and etc. down there, anything that could give them a little bit of better feelings, or a little bit of esteem, or anything like that, they'll be willing to trade off and give human beings a little bit of power in the meantime. It's like, that's why they engage in these sacrifices, because the bloodletting does give them a little reprieve.
Yeah, the Emerald Tablets also speak about how these dark entities are able to come into our world, like a portal is open when the blood is offered. And so I think that, Satanism, they practice blood sacrifice in order to open up portals where these demonic forces can enter into our world. And
Right.
a lot of times, the people that practice these kind of things, they're not able to control those kind of powers, those principalities. And their bodies are actually taken over in possession, like people that think it's fun to try to talk to the dead, or
Yeah.
those kind of things. They don't know really what they're getting themselves into. And so they can be driven to madness and these powers can take them over. But yeah, I think the blood sacrifice, it's taught and promoted in Satanism as a way to not only kill innocents, but again, to bring forth these demonic entities.
How about your thoughts on cannibalism?
I think that
you mentioned it earlier.
Again, when you look at the giants, because they had such large appetites, they started to consume everything, and they started to eat humanity. And when they did that, this was an abomination, and the Most High brought, judgment upon them and against them. And so I think that the giants were the ones that, and I also think that the fallen angels instructed them in not only the cannibalism, but also in the consumption of blood, the blood sacrifice, the victim sacrifice, all these kind of things, and that they establish it as practice for the worship of these kind of deities, and that the giants did involve themselves and make this part of their religion. That's why we have the children being passed through fire, burned in statues to Moloch and things like that.
Moloch.
Go ahead, brother.
Go ahead.
Now we only got a couple minutes, so I want to give you a chance.
Yeah, Moloch is actually the serpent, another name for the serpent in the Garden of Eden, which according to the research. So it seems to go back to the Garden of Eden and the early Genesis again. You see Moloch and again, and I think you're absolutely right when you're talking about engaging in fornication. And when we talk about fornication, that doesn't always mean what the common meaning of it is. It also could mean pretty much the selling out of your soul or defrauding the brethren. In other words, that's what they did. The angels and the women back then before the flood would participate in fornication. That's what they called it, is because they both got something out of it, but they both hurt their own souls and destroyed their own souls in the process.
Yes,
so that's what that's called.
Yeah, we have a question from Lucas. He asks, why did Jesus resurrect on the third day? That reason was because he was going to fulfill the feast of the Lord, the feast of the Most High. And he was the Passover lamb that was sacrificed on the 14th of Nisan. We have the Feast of Unleavened Bread having on the Sabbath, the full moon Sabbath of the 15th. And then he resurrected on the third day after descending down into Sheol and freeing Adam and his descendants from their bondage, and brought liberty to the captives, took them up to the Archurusine Lake. They were baptized and allowed to enter into the city of New Jerusalem. But he fulfilled the high priest duty on offering the first fruits, which he was the high priest in the order of Melchizedek. And we see that he offered Adam and all of his righteous descendants as the resurrected first fruits before the throne of the Father on the third day. And so this fulfilled the feasts of the Lord. And he will return, like the Holy Spirit came on Pentecost, or Shavuot, and he will return on the Feast of Trumpets, Yom Teruah, and take the judgment seat on the Day of Atonement, and then on the Feast of Tabernacles, Sukkot. That is when the harvest will take place, the separation, and those that are numbered with the elect will enter into New Jerusalem for what will be the millennial rest. But Brett, we got just a few minutes, brother. I'll give you a chance to comment or share your website and where people can get your book again, and all that.
Quick last comment for tonight. And it is again, we read in the Bible in the New Testament is that Adam was the first Adam and Jesus was the last Adam. And again, that fulfills prophecy, and it always, again, it brings us all the way back to the Garden of Eden again. Just
right.
fascinating. And that prophecy. Okay, yeah, my website is mysterybabylon.com. And again, my email is mysterybabylon, all one word, at 1791.com. And you can get my books at sacredwordpublishing.com. It's Zen's website.
Yes, we share and sell and support Brett and all of his work, and you can even get a bundle, I believe, of all of his books available there. And I do recommend his work, not only because it confirms mine, but I think it's very well written and it's awesome research to check out. But anyways, we thank all of you again for joining us. It's always a pleasure, Brett. I love doing these shows and this series with you. I pray you, your family, your loved ones, everybody's good. And I pray for all of you out there. I pray that the Most High lead us all in discernment, guidance, and protection, and keep us all safe. And I pray that none of the craziness of what is the end times and falls upon us. I pray that we have days of peace and joy going forth. Grace asks, when will the poetry book be dropping? I'm going to release 3 books of poetry that I've already written, but I am going to be working on that one, and I'm thinking it's probably going to take me a few months. It's mostly written, but I'm going to be re-examining, re-editing, and putting a cover to it. And so maybe by the end of the year, I'll match Brett's deadline. And we can, by the end of the year, the beginning of the new year,
Awesome.
I'll release it.
Great.
Go ahead, brother.
I said, that'd be great. Have 2 new books coming out on your website.
Yeah, exactly. And so thank you again, Brett. And thank you, everyone. Be blessed in all that you do. We love you and pray, that you are well and taken care of in these crazy and uncertain times. Be blessed, brother.
You too. Be blessed. Thank you all for coming. We'll see you in a couple months.
Good night, all.
Good night.